Good morning and welcome back to Planet Althistory. Today we are going to discuss what if the Spanish Empire never collapsed. Before we continue, let me tell you that this title is a bit exaggerated. Alternatives could have been what if Latin America got independence later, or what if the Napoleonic War never happened, or happened differently to Spain. As you can see, these aren't great titles for a video, and if you're someone, and I suppose most of you who are into history, you may have an idea about history of course and about the period we are going to talk about in this video. A total Spanish domination in Latin America is impossible, that's for sure, because the Spanish ruling system wouldn't allow it at all. Moreover, Spain was also facing a rapid decline, and new powers were emerging, such as the US. Local elites were fed up with the Spanish crown and looking for excuses to get independence. European powers such as UK, France gained momentum and overran Spain. Portugal had an ally and was protected, and an invasion of Northern Africa would have been no option for Spain. Let's not forget that later on the US had a specific goal, that no European power could intervene in American affairs. Yes, American, not US, but American affairs. This meant everything from Canada up to, Chile, Argentina. Of course, Canada was an exception because, well, it was British, but anyway. This was also redirected against Spain, basically. Spain had also complicated laws, rules, and a very complicated caste system. Sometimes even the white people born in the Spanish colonies had less rights than someone from Spain, and Spain wasn't known to be as progressive as Britain, for instance. But in this alternate timeline, Spain will be different. So what if all of that changed? What if the Spanish Empire never collapsed? First of all, let's assume that either Ferdinand VII takes power earlier on and succeeds with the El Escorial conspiracy, forcing his father Charles IV to abdicate, and Manuel Godoy would leave the position of prime minister, or once Ferdinand VII takes power, he would still go to France but manage to escape from the castle of Valençay. As a result, Ferdinand VII and his family would go to the colonies and make a similar choice as the Portuguese monarch family. It is very likely that Ferdinand VII would escape to Mexico. Mainland Spain will still face a lot of trouble, but at the same time, there would be an official Spanish king. This means that the Spanish king can still name a vice king, and there will be some kind of rule in the colonies. Sure, some people may try to take advantage of the situation, but all in all, it will take off a lot of steam from the independence movements in Latin America. This changes a lot. Now the local elites of the colonies don't have the perfect excuse to declare independence, because the Spanish king is well and alive and can rule and enforce stuff from New Spain or Mexico. And if not, well, they are still the vice kings. They still exist and they are still named by the Spanish king. We are in the times of the Napoleonic Wars, and let's be honest here, nobody would even dare to recognize Napoleon's brother as king of Spain. And yet at the same time, many ideas of Napoleon would still influence a lot of people all over the world. Many Creoles would hate the Bourbon monarchy because of the reforms that were made. These reforms, they had positive effects in some areas, improving the administration and economy in Cuba, for instance, or Rio de la Plata and New Spain. But it was a disaster in Peru and Colombia. King Ferdinand VII was in favor of an absolute monarchy, but seeing how things were different in New Spain and Latin America, could have sparked some type of change. Seeing how Ferdinand VII was an absolutist king, he would have made reforms that would give him more control, weakening the vice kings, even perhaps going so far as abolishing them, and giving more power to the local elites, but dividing this power into smaller units. One possible way how Spain could reorganize the colonies would be the same way what they did with the Canary Islands, for instance. People born in the colonies could now gain higher positions, while discrimination wouldn't end and Spain would still see rebellions here and there. It would make the Spanish Empire more stable, and it would be a stability that was very much needed. These revolts could be suppressed, and over the time more reforms could be made, where the colonies could have some representation in mainland Spain. In OTL, the elite of the colonies, while experimenting with independence, supported the Spanish rule once more because they feared that the local population would get too radical, while the ideas of enlightenment, liberty, and the Code Civil would still spread and influence the colonies. The population would only find support in the church for independence, but not from the local elite. At the end, King Ferdinand VII would still have the last word, but actively take an interest in the policies of the colonies. Spending a few years in Mexico or other parts of the Spanish Empire would definitely benefit his experience and decision making. The Spanish crown wasn't now something far away, but it was an active part of the politics of the colonies, of the everyday life. I don't think that we could see some settler colonies emerge or that something else would happen, but we could see more Spanish immigration in certain parts of the colonies, and who knows, even in the Philippines. Perhaps the Philippines and the Pacific Islands could even see a Latino immigration, giving a Latin minority in there. Neither France nor the UK would be able to take the Spanish colonies. Here are the reasons. France wasn't able to take Haiti, and the Brits, they lost against Spain in Rio de la Plata. With an increased participation of local and colonial population, more people could be recruited in the army and defend the territories. The US too would not be able to annex or suddenly take the Spanish colonies because until the 19th century, the US Navy was no match. It was just a trading navy, boats that would trade with goods, but not to fight a war on the sea. Spain won't lose money from retaking their colonies and will instead focus it into rebuilding the mainland. The mainland may actually start to be more depopulated and push more Spanish immigration over to the colonies, which again would give this effect that it would stabilize the colonies. Over time, there would be a hybrid system within the Spanish Empire. We could see the start of a Spanish Commonwealth, or something that the British had with the British Commonwealth, but with a very strong king on the top. Over the years to come, the colonies would, without any doubt, reorganize themselves, get more autonomy, even independence, but keep the Spanish king as the monarch. Will the US take Florida, California, Texas, Puerto Rico, etc.? Not really, no. The US and Spain will have a war, and yes, the US could even win some of the battles or majority of it, but with a more organized Spanish Empire, which could send men from colonies left and right, the US would face a very strong enemy. At the end, Florida may actually fall due to the geographical proximity. Spanish Louisiana could be defended on the Mississippi River, and the US would thus be totally altered. Sure, they could take more territories over time, but an access to the Pacific coast This will be nearly impossible in this timeline. Another option is that within the territories claimed in Northern America, some Native American states could emerge or at very least gain high autonomy. In this world, Spain would partially reverse their decline and compete once more with the UK, becoming an empire that doesn't take any interest in European affairs. Spain would also intervene in Portuguese affairs, keeping the Portuguese-Brazilian Union well and alive. A focus in Africa wouldn't arise, but it is possible that Spain could get a few more colonies as compared to OTL. Tensions between the UK would always exist, smaller wars they would erupt, but at the end Spain and Britain would have different interests, and they could solve their issues in the Pacific coast, for instance, of Northern America and even the Caribbean. At the end, Mexico, Gran Colombia, Peru, Argentina, the Philippines, Cuba, etc., they would get more and more independent. But we could see that the king, he would be a shared head of state, similar to what Britain has nowadays. The Queen is still the Queen of Canada, Australia, and many more parts of the world. Mexico, Gran Colombia, they will stay strong allies of Spain because of the shared monarch with Spain. Moreover, there would be less independent states in Latin America. Puerto Rico, the Pacific Islands, and perhaps even Cuba, they could stay permanently part of Spain, just as Britain still has some islands in the Caribbean, for instance. Will the Spanish Empire be in favor of a German Empire and even become an ally? Will the Spanish Empire not care for European affairs at all? Or will the Spanish Empire ally with France and the UK to ensure some balance within Europe? And that's where we leave it for now. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, support me also on Patreon, and join my forum, forum.planetalthistory.ga. Until next time on Planet Alt History.